Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth in the hot seat and fighting now for his very job. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, this scandal erupted late yesterday afternoon, and it has now consumed much of the media and obviously much on Capitol Hill. So here is now the absolute latest. As you know, several weeks ago, the United States launched a massive airstrike, missile, and drone campaign targeting the Iranian-backed Houthi terrorists in Yemen. And actually, by all accounts, it was a very successful campaign. Houthi rebels, many of them were killed. Many of their weapon storages, depots were destroyed. Houthi leaders were taken out. By all accounts, it was a resounding success. And so many of you right now may be saying, Jeff, if it was such a successful, effective campaign, what's the problem, Jeff? Where's the scandal, Jeff? Well, here is now what we have learned. The editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine, Jeffrey Goldberg, who is a rabid, and I mean rabid, anti-Trumper. He is the one who pushed that infamous suckers and losers hoax against President Trump. You remember that outrageous, and it turned out to be utterly false claim that Trump said, this was in France at a commemoration event for Americans who fought in World War I and World War II, that those who fought and died for our country and died in France and died in Europe were quote unquote suckers and losers. That's Jeffrey Goldberg, that Goldberg. Well, he apparently came out with a story in The Atlantic that he received texts, actual, authentic, real text messages that were sent to him accidentally on a group chat comprised of Trump's top national security team. In other words, in plain English, they accidentally leaked the U.S. war plans to pound and hit the Houthi rebels in Yemen before the strikes took place. And so, according now to what we're starting to find out, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz organized a team of about 18 national security officials. And he put them on this commercial messaging app, this group chat app. It's called Signal. I'm aware of it. It's, by the way, it's commercial. You can download it on your phone. I can download it on my phone. And so on this Signal messaging app, he then had Pete Hegseth ask the national security team, which comprised of Mike Waltz himself, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Tulsi Gabbard, head of DNI, J.D. Vance, the vice president. It goes on and on. Stephen Miller, the senior White House advisor. It even included the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent. There were about 15 to 18 people on this group chat. And they're literally talking about the U.S. plans to attack the Houthi rebels. Whether it's a good idea, a bad idea, you see there are some agreements and disagreements, but what they discussed in particular were the actual targets, the weapons that were going to be used, even the sequencing of the attacks. Now, what you also see, and this is very common in every administration because you never have unanimity, is that, for example, J.D. Vance was very skeptical of the attacks, saying, I don't think we should be doing this. Only 3% of U.S. trade goes through that area, the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, that the Houthis are, basically blockading with their attacks on shipping. 40% of European shipping goes through that area. So again, as J.D. Vance put it, we're going to do all the fighting, all the heavy lifting. We're going to take all of the risks, and we're bailing out the Europeans. Hegseth and others disagree. Hegseth and Miller in particular are saying, no, the president wants us to do this. We need to do it. We got to get out in front. And so it's now or never. Anyway, long story short, in the end, they ended up doing the strikes. And as I said, they were successful. But the question now is, how could this have been leaked accidentally to this rabid anti-Trump reporter, an editor of the Atlantic magazine, who has made it its business to destroy and defame Donald Trump? That's the question. Furthermore, Democrats now and the media are on the warpath. They are going absolutely ballistic, saying now that Pete Hegseth needs to resign. They are demanding his resignation. Why? Because they say, A, what he did endangered American lives, potentially, endangered a very sensitive, top secret a military operation, i.e. the attacks on the Houthis in Yemen, and that it violates the Espionage Act. And so they're demanding Pete Hegseth's head on a platter. Yesterday, President Trump was actually blindsided by the discovery. He had no idea that they were using Signal. He had no idea that they were texting each other on an insecure messaging app. And he had no idea that the Atlantic yesterday broke the story. Goldberg himself wrote the story saying, you're not going to believe what happened. I accidentally got these text messages, and it was about what happened a few weeks ago. I knew about the war plans and the strikes hours and even days before they actually took place. Roll cut one, Mike.
Your reaction to the story in the Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of the Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
With the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis? Right. Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
Now look, he's right. The attack was very effective. Now, I just want to state this up front. I can't stand Jeffrey Goldberg. I think he's a liar. I think he's a charlatan. I think I'll never forgive him for making up that lie about Trump. Trump never called those people who sacrificed for our country, our soldiers in Europe, whether it be in World War I or World War II, suckers and losers. He pushed the Russia collusion hoax. He's clearly an anti-Trump hack. There's no question about it. And I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. But the fact of the matter is, he does have the texts. I mean, he has them. There's no question about it. They're authentic texts. They're what was said between Hegseth and JD and Stephen Miller, and you see others weighing in. So he had the texts. Someone leaked, or, he was on that chain message. It got leaked to him. The question is whether it was done deliberately or accidentally. That's the question now. And there's speculation that maybe somebody is trying to ambush Pete Hegseth, sabotage Pete Hegseth by having had this leaked to Jeffrey Goldberg. Now, to be fair to Goldberg, again, and I can't stand the guy, but Goldberg did not leak the information in advance of the operation. He had it, and he didn't divulge it on social media at the time. He didn't report on it at the time, knowing full well this would put our men and women, our fighting men and women in harm's way. and it would sacrifice potentially and disrupt the entire military operation. So he waited. But as he said, he goes, look, I'm reading this. They give the go-ahead eventually. They even discuss weapons. They discuss exactly the cities and the targets they're going to hit. They even discuss the sequencing. And then several hours later, boom, the missiles start flying in Yemen. So he could have literally exposed all of this before it took place. He didn't do that. Okay? So the question now is, was Hegseth grossly irresponsible in putting that over an unsecure messaging app, which, by the way, is never used to discuss highly classified information? It's non-governmental. So you're talking about a commercial messaging app. Or is someone trying to discredit Hegseth and put Goldberg on that chain in order to make Hegseth and Trump look bad? Your calls next. 618 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, media public firestorm now engulfing Capitol Hill, and of course much of the media. They now on the warpath against really two individuals. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, and this is now being corroborated now by other media outlets as senior administration officials are talking on background, President Trump is very angry. He was blindsided by this story yesterday. He is upset. He's upset with both men, but in particular, he is extremely upset with National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. And frankly, I don't blame him. According to what I'm reading, according to what senior officials are saying, Trump is asking, how could Waltz be so sloppy? Now, to show you how sloppy this was, Signal is a free app. You can you, me, anybody. It's run by a nonprofit. You could use it. It's like a chat group. So you can put, 10, 15, 20, 30 people, whatever, and you all can just start messaging each other. And, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Whatever. So what Waltz did was he put 18 top administration officials. Look, I got to tell you, when I read this, my eyes popped out of my skull. Rubio was on the group chat. Rubio, the Secretary of State. Tulsi Gabbard, the head of DNI, was on the group chat. CIA Director John Ratcliffe on the group chat. Hegseth, obviously, Secretary of Defense, on the group chat. Waltz himself, National Security Advisor, on the group chat. J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, on the group chat. Scott Bessent, Secretary Treasury. I don't know why he was included, frankly, but he's on the group chat. Stephen Miller, Senior Advisor to Trump, on the group chat. There were 18 in all. Signal is incredibly insecure. It is easily hacked. Easily. So that's the first question. Which genius told Waltz that you should put all of this classified information and discuss U.S. war plans on an unsecure messaging app, a group chat? Normally, when you have a discussion like this, where you're talking about weapons that'll be used, targets, timing, sequencing, policy disagreements, should we do it, should we not do it, here are the reasons for, here are the reasons against it, you do it in the Situation Room. Of course, you have to do it in the Situation Room. And if you can't put everybody together, because everybody's, Rubio's flying around the world and J.D. Vance is, doing stuff for the president and on, then you do it over a secure government communications network that is impervious to being hacked. Why? Because you're discussing top secret classified information. This is immediately what I told Grace last night. She couldn't believe it. She said, "Did you hear what Waltz did?" I go, I'm speechless. I'm speechless. Now, I'm just going to tell you my honest reaction. If I was a member of that 18, okay, and what? We're using Signal? Are you serious? And then it's like, so should we do it? Should we not do it? President says it's a green light. Literally, that's what Miller says at one point. President said it's a green light. Let's do it. So should we do it? When should we do it? I'm like, is this secure? Why are we doing this over Signal? Signal, anybody uses Signal. We shouldn't be discussing this over Signal. Who the hell thinks it's a good idea to do this over Signal? If this was Waltz's idea, and it's now appearing that it could have been, I'll tell you this. I think Trump's going to call him on the carpet. He's going to take him to the woodshed. Now, apparently he's not happy with Waltz over this. We got to find out more details. But to me, this is a big mistake. You don't do this. Now, thank the Lord, it didn't disrupt the operation. No service members' lives were endangered. No service member accidentally or needlessly died because of the information that was accidentally leaked to Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic. But my God, you don't conduct classified information and top secret war planning on a freaking Signal app. Well, what's wrong with that guy or the people advising him? Now they're saying, well, it's encrypted and it's hard to break into. And hey, in today's day and age, unless it's on an absolutely top secret communications government controlled network, you either do it on that or you do it right in the Situation Room. Anything else, it can be hacked. Now, to me, that begs the question. How did Jeffrey Goldberg, how was he added to this group chat? That's the question. Was it an accident? Was it just some aide who, and this does happen, accidentally adds someone to a list because they're dealing with the press, as they're dealing with their bosses, and somehow a name gets put in? I seriously doubt it. This is the same as I said, Jeffrey Goldberg, who's been gunning for Trump for years, who's lied about Trump repeatedly. Now, I wouldn't even believe this, except the Trump administration issued a statement saying that the texts that people are reading about now, because Goldberg published the texts now after the mission is over, are authentic. As they put it, the text threads, the messaging threads, the back and forth between Hegseth and J.D. Vance and Hegseth and Stephen Miller, and it's all there, that this is all authentic. These were the actual messages, the actual texts that were sent. So Goldberg does actually have the real text messages. So he's not making it up. The question is, how did he get it? And why did he get it? Now, it's either two possibilities. Either someone is looking to sabotage the Trump National Security Team, and in particular Pete Hegseth, because they're all calling for his head, because he was the one that was the leader of this group chat. He was the one driving the debate and the discussion, saying he violated the Espionage Act, saying that he accidentally leaked classified information, and that he needs now to go and he needs to resign. So either someone is trying to sabotage him and get him kicked out, have him lose his job, or it was done accidentally. Which then begs the ultimate question. Who the hell is talking to Jeffrey Goldberg? Why would you have anything to do with Jeffrey Goldberg? Goldberg is one of the destroyed Trump leaders in the media. Your calls next. 6:34 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, 617-266 6868 is the number. Okay, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. The question now is, should Pete Hegseth resign? I think now there's no question. That's the question. Now, whether Trump will push him out, we shall see. What we do know is he is very unhappy with this, regarding this issue, with National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. And he thought it was sloppy, that it should not have been done, a chat group on an unsecure communication or line like Signal, and that this shall never, ever happen again. But the bigger issue is Hegseth. And the reason is, he's the Secretary of Defense. Yes, Waltz was the one that set up this chat group, and these 18 top national security officials were then, and of course, Jeffrey Goldberg was accidentally, inadvertently added. But he was the one that set up the group chat. But it was Hegseth, and remember, he's at the top of the chain of command on this issue of going to war with the Houthi rebels in Yemen and launching these devastating strikes. The only one above him is the president himself, and he clearly wasn't on that group chat. So Hegseth agreed to using Signal, to using this unclassified system, and he's the one, frankly, with the biggest mouth in terms of talking, messaging, texting in this group chat. And he's the one that's talking about operational details, targets, sequencing, weapons packages. He's the one that just won't stop talking throughout this entire chain of text messages. There's some back and forth with JD, Stephen Miller, and others. But the one that's really, driving this entire thing is Hegseth. Now, the argument that many are making is Hegseth should have known better. Hegseth should have immediately said, whoa, hey, whoa. We're going to do this on a commercial messaging app? Are you serious? On an unclassified app? No. Either we do this in a situation room, or we do it on a secure government classified network that can handle any possible breach of security. And to me, the ultimate question, so he's in the hot seat now. He agreed to it. He talked about it. He blabbed about much of what was going to happen in Yemen. And so the question now is, will Trump stand by him? That's now the question. As the pressure is going to escalate and escalate and escalate, the Democrats are already sensing blood in the water. They're saying this is a violation of the Espionage Act. This is a leak of classified information, in this case, to Jeffrey Goldberg, and that Hegseth showed, this is their argument, absolute incompetence, recklessness, and negligence. And that it shows that he's not able to be Secretary of Defense. He's out of his league and out of his depth. Now, Trump is going to have to sit down with Hegseth and get this cleared up. There's going to have to be a come to Jesus moment. And I think the question is twofold. Why would you agree to discuss U.S. military operations, war plans, on an unsecure messaging app? I think that's a big question that Hegseth needs to answer. And number two, how the hell was Jeffrey Goldberg even put onto that text chain? How is he privy and being allowed to be given all of this information? That to me is just, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible on both counts. Now, Hegseth was on a visit to military bases when this story broke yesterday. Listen to him. He lands in Honolulu in Hawaii, and he was upset. He was angry. He was hot, and he went right after Jeffrey Goldberg. Roll cut 2, Mike.
Can you share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic? And were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the, the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does.
Now, it's true. He's right. He's completely right. Yes. Everything that he said about Jeffrey Goldberg is, I would even go further, frankly. He peddles in garbage and lies and propaganda. Okay? Disinformation, misinformation, however you want to put it. He did push the suckers and losers hoax. He did push the Russia collusion hoax. He did push that Charlottesville, that lie that Trump said, oh, fine people. I love the Nazis. I love white supremacists. They're good people. Lie. Goldberg's magazine is a propaganda outlet for the radical left and the Democratic Party. It's literally funded by Bill Gates' ex-wife. And she's given him a ton of money, a ton of cash, a lot of writers, and the mission is destroy Trump. That's why I'm thinking, how the hell was this guy on the text chain? Who's talking to Jeffrey Goldberg? Why would you have anything to do with Jeffrey Goldberg? The guy's stated mission in life is to bring down Donald Trump. Now, the only problem, and it's a separate issue. Look, I see these administration officials on CNN all the time. I see them on ABC News. I see them on with Stephanopoulos on This Week on Sunday. I'm like, why do you keep rewarding your mortal enemies? These aren't journalists. They're activists. They're Democratic activists who are trying to destroy you and your entire administration. Why would you give them the time of day? Why do you even talk to these people? Okay? But that's a separate issue. The text thread, the messaging thread, the texts were authentic. I mean, Goldberg is not lying about this. He got the messages. And the administration has said, yes, those were the actual messages sent back and forth between Hegseth and members of the national security team. So to be honest, okay, yes, Goldberg is a scumbag. But how did the information get to him? Hegseth doesn't answer that. So the reporter then says, okay, fine, but how did he get it? That's the question. Roll cut 3, Mike.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
He shouldn't have said that. I'll be honest with you. I don't think he should have said that because the war plans were texted. Now, I don't know if he means nobody deliberately did it or nobody deliberately sent it to Goldberg. Okay. That, in other words, that this was accidental. Maybe. Look, I think he should have said this was a mistake and we'll get to the bottom of it and heads will roll. By doubling down, he's now made this even a bigger scandal. Your calls next. It's 49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, final exclamation point because the lines are jammed. This is my theory, and you tell me if you agree or disagree. My fear is that there is a mole, a conspirator, a saboteur inside Trump's inner circle. I don't think it was accidental. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't have any special insight or access, but I'm just telling you that I don't think Jeffrey Goldberg was just accidentally put on that group chat. You're going to tell me one of the leading journalistic voices of opposition to Trump, who's been out to get him now for over 10 years, who's lied about him and smeared him repeatedly, just happened to pop up on that group chat with 18 of the leading officials in Trump's entire cabinet, especially his national security team, all the way up to the vice president? No. No, I'm sorry. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I think there's someone inside Trump's team, a mole, a conspirator, whatever you want to call it, who's trying to sabotage Trump's foreign policy and Trump's administration from within. And so chaos and havoc and division, and basically make it almost impossible now for them to function. And just now embroil them in scandal after scandal after scandal. But again, that's me. Agree, disagree. 617-266-6868. Bob in Marblehead. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Yeah, Jeff, one disagreement is what we call in the Navy an OPSEC violation, operational security violation. Here's the thing that surprises me, though. When we have an operation like that, there's usually an SSO, a special security officer, who is monitoring what's going on. And this person should have stopped right off, analyzed, and said, all right, here's what's going to happen. All of this conversation has got to be covered in code. So, anyway,
Bob, let me ask you this, because you know this better than I do. You have sort of insider knowledge that many of us don't have. Was Hegseth wrong? Remember, he's the defense secretary. The buck essentially stops with him. I know it's Trump, but this is a military campaign. By the way, it's still ongoing. It started last week, and these conversations were of last week, but it's still ongoing. Bombs are dropping in Yemen as we speak. I mean, we are pounding the Houthis. The media is not covering it, but we are essentially at war with the Houthis. So this is still ongoing. My question to you is, should the defense secretary have said, this is an unsecure communication system? It's Signal, for God's sake. No, we're not going to be discussing this on this kind of an unsecure communications app. We either do it in the Situation Room or on some government-secured communication network that I know we can discuss highly classified information. Should the defense secretary, should Pete have put his foot down and, he's the last wall and say, no, we're not doing this. I don't care if National Security Advisor approved it, if Mike Waltz approved it. I don't care. This is not where you discuss something like this. Should he have done that? What say you, Bob? Well,
he should have been briefed when he got clearance, and I'm sure he had to get special security clearance. Whoever gave him that security clearance or briefed him on that, he should have been, and he was an SSO, a special security officer. This is the guy that gives the clearances out and also briefs the person that he's giving the clearance to. And somewhere in the staff of the SecDef should have been an SSO, and he should have stopped it right off the bat, should have traveled with him to make sure that what he's saying, what he's putting out on his phone, what he's, on his computer, and should have stopped him right off the bat and said, wait a minute, stop. That's got to be covered. In other words, crypto covered. And that's why we have cryptologists. My detachment, I was the SSO, so I was responsible for all of the clearances. Everything that was classified had to go through, and I had to classify things. I had to dispose of them and so forth. But that's an SSO. So somewhere on his staff, there should have been an SSO briefing him on what he can say, what he can put out, and so forth. Now, Pete Hegseth is an Army guy. I don't know what his knowledge of signals intelligence, signals operations, because his military operational specialty is probably not communication security. So, That's what I'm saying. There's a failure somewhere in the staff, and somebody should have, and any one of those government folks that were involved in the chat, somebody should have said, "Ooh, wait a minute, this is pretty."
No, I agree. I agree. No, Bob, you're dead on. You're absolutely dead on. Bob, thank you very much for that call. Look, there's no question. Look, to me, that was my first reaction. Okay, outside of why the hell is Jeffrey Goldberg on a group chat regarding the inside administration deliberations and policy on whether we should bomb Yemen or not? How the hell did this guy get on that thing? Okay, so who's talking to Goldberg? That's what I'm like, who the hell's talking to this guy? This guy's stated goal in life is to bring Trump to his knees, to decapitate him politically, finish him. So what? Okay, but right away, right after that, I'm like, who okayed this over Signal? Over an unsecure communications network? Who the hell approved this? Now, let me throw this super quick log, because Sandy is really fired up over this, this morning. What do you say to the argument that Hegseth should have known better? He is the defense secretary. That ultimately the buck should and does stop with him. And that Trump now has a very big decision to make. Should he cut Hegseth loose? In other words, have him resign? Or should Trump give him a second chance? I think now that's the question that's going to build over the next couple of days. But look, my sense is I think Trump's going to stand behind Hegseth. I think I pretty much know Donald Trump in many ways. Trump will give people a second chance if they screw up. But what he'll tell them is, it's your last chance. All right, you've got, I give you one mulligan. You've got one mulligan. I just gave it to you. Don't screw up a second time. So I don't think Trump's going to cut him loose. But I'm sorry, Hegseth should have known better. Somebody on his staff should have known better. And I suspect somebody's setting up Hegseth. That's my sense. Someone is there. There's a mole. There's a saboteur. There's no question. And so I want to know two things. Who ultimately okayed putting all of this information on Signal, on this unclassified network, and this group chat? And number two, how the hell did Jeffrey Goldberg get on that chat? You got to get to the bottom of this. And my fear is, remember how Trump was always sabotaged from within? Always these leaks, inadvertent leaks, and then the media would pounce all over it, and it'd be scandal after scandal, and that's how they paralyzed much of Trump's first term. I don't want to see a repeat of this. And that's why Trump had his loyalists this time come in. And now you got this screw up? They got to get to the bottom of this. They have to. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Janice in Melrose. Thanks for holding, Janice, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Janice.
Has it been verified that he was actually on the chat, or just that he has the information? Could someone have leaked it after the fact?
That's a very good question. I'll read to you. I can read to you the actual statement that the National Security Council released, that the message thread, this is how they put it, that the message thread is authentic. In other words, that the text messages Goldberg has are authentic. He's claiming that he was part of the group chat as it was happening. So in a way, we're kind of taking him at his word, which I don't like to do because he's a liar. So and in particular, Janice, just so that you understand where the intensity from the scandal is coming from. Goldberg, and I'll play cuts of him throughout the show. Goldberg has gone on CNN and MSNBC saying 2 hours before the first bombs and drone strikes took place in Yemen, he was on the group chat whereby Hegseth now talking again to Tulsi, to Marco Rubio, to J.D. Vance, to Mike Waltz, to the whole team, to CIA Director John Ratcliffe, specifically said we're going to be using these weapons, these kinds of missiles, these kinds of drones. We're going to be hitting Sana'a, in particular these areas in Sana'a, which is the capital of Yemen. In other words, he gave specific locations, specific weapons, and the sequencing. Whatever. 1 o'clock will be the drones. 1:30 will be the airstrikes. 2 o'clock will be the missile strikes. So that's what Goldberg is claiming, that he knew operational details to a minute, detailed level several hours before the operation took place, and that he refused to release that to the public. That's what he's claiming. But you're right, Janice. We're taking him at his word. This could have been leaked to him after the fact. And he's just claiming, oh, I got it, days before and even hours before the operation. The messages are authentic. Everything else we don't know. I don't know if I answered your question.
Saying that could have been something that Amol did after the fact.
Yes.
But you can tell, I don't know the technology, but you can tell if he was actually on the chat. I'm assuming that they can figure that out.
Well, Janice, look, I've used Signal. Yeah. Janice, okay, I don't know if you ever used it. I've used Signal, and I'm really technologically pretty illiterate. So I've done group chats. Now, I'm telling you on my Signal app, maybe it's me, the audience, you know better than I do. You see the names and the numbers of the people on the chat. I mean, you see them. I do Signal, I talk to my family in Montreal, my family in Arizona, my sisters, my nephews, my sister-in-law, my other niece up in Montreal. So I've got, multiple people on the line. And then Ashton and Ava like to chime in because they think it's cool. And so they're in my house, but they're on their own phones. And they're like, so everyone's using Signal. So sometimes we'll have like 6, 8 people, whatever. So I don't know. What are we planning to do for Easter? Let me just give you an example. But I see all the names right beside the numbers. Now, I get it. It was 18 people. It's a long chat. It's a long messaging thread. But no one saw Jeffrey Goldberg? I'm just going to make up a number. 202-444-1111? Like nobody, hello? No? Or was that or was it encrypted? So you don't see any names or numbers. I mean, I don't know the specific details. I can just tell you when I use Signal, I see names and I see numbers. How could they have not known that Jeffrey Goldberg was on that call? That's another question that needs to be answered. Janice, final word to you.
Just one thing. I hope Trump doesn't act rashly. I keep thinking of Michael Flynn, and I think he was set up by James Comey, and Trump just fired him to, I just hope he slows down a little and really knows what he's dealing with. Oh, I
love that. Oh, Janice, I love that. They set up Flynn in his first term to get rid of him. And my fear is they're trying to set up Hegseth now, and maybe even Mike Waltz. But that's why I think Trump is going to, no, you're going to get a second chance. Let's make sure this never happens again. Because the media, the firestorm, that cost him Mike Flynn, and it really damaged his administration early on. So I'm with you, Janice. Trump needs to have learned his lesson. What they say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Janice, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Okay, let me ask all of you. This is the question now of the hour, okay? Really, in terms of news. The Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Because of the breach in security over the use of Signal, discussing U.S. war plans in Yemen, should Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth resign? Should he now tender his resignation effective immediately. Hakeem Jeffries is now calling for Hegseth to go. Schumer is calling for Hegseth to go. The Democrats are demanding Hegseth resign. The media is demanding Hegseth step down. Should Hegseth step down? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote via X, and as you saw last night, man, was I active. You can vote on X, my handle there, at the Kuhner Report, KUHN is in national ER, all one word, at the Kuhner Report. I'm a no. I don't think he should resign over this. No way. At a bare minimum, at least unless you find out more information. But even then, I suspect he was set up. I suspect there's a mole. I suspect there's someone inside that's trying to destroy the national security team from within. So, no. I mean, maybe, have a stern talking to and say, look, Pete, we don't do things over signal, okay? Like, come on, man. Where's your staff? Where are your people? Let's go. This can't happen again. But no. Force him out? No. Rick in Natick. Thanks for holding, Rick, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Rick.
Yeah, you got to pay specific attention to detail when they use different words because they like to play word games on both sides. Like when they asked Hegseth, was he texting war game information? He said there was no texting of war, war plans. And we're not at war. There's no declaration of war. It's a retaliatory airstrike is what it is. So when they say that, you see what I mean? It's like the Hillary Clinton, they swapped out gross negligence for extreme carelessness. They're very sleazy with the wording. And if you also notice, there's a whole, I'm going to throw out a bunch of names, and I'd like you to tell me what they have in common. This guy Goldberg, that last judge Brosberg, Jerry Nadler, Adam Schiff, Kevin Kleinsmith. You see the silver lining here, the common thread? All Jewish people. And you wonder why there's anti-Semitism. These people are sleaze.
No, I know. But, Rick, I don't like to go down that road for many reasons. Look, I can go on. Stephen Miller. I mean, how many people? Steve Witkoff. You've got people in Trump's administration that are Jewish. I mean, I don't like to play the anti-Semitism card. Look, you got a lot of people gunning for Trump that, AOC, she's not Jewish. Ayanna Pressley, she's not Jewish. Elizabeth Warren, she's not Jewish. Kamala Harris, she's not Jewish. Joe Biden, he's not Jewish. I mean, let's not blame the Jews. The Jews have nothing to do with this. No, I agree with you that I don't like the way Hegseth came out with his denial. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. Either he should have said it was a mistake, screw-ups were made, people are going to be held accountable, it won't happen again. But when he said no war plans were texted, I'm like, ugh. Now, I don't know. Look, maybe it's the truth. Please, don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't know. Look, a question that I have is, because he's got the text, Goldberg's got the texts. So I'm like, well, what are you debating? What are you arguing? Now, it could be it was sent after the fact. That, Janice mentioned that. The other thing is, Hegseth could be, no, man, we didn't include him. He wasn't included. Somebody included him. We didn't know he was being included. In other words, this was being done behind our back. Or, or look, this is an outrageous, I don't think it happened. But, I was like, why is everybody assuming that Goldberg was just inadvertently allowed to join the group chat? What if someone at the Atlantic helped him hack into the group chat? He's claiming, remember, this is all based on Goldberg. and I don't trust him as far as you can throw him because I know he's a sleazebag. He says, no. I was added on the group chat. All this information just came to me. Just out of the blue on my phone. I'm like, what's this? Literally, that's what he said. He goes, I thought it was a joke. And then I realized it's not a joke. And I'm like, I don't know. I got to take your word for it. And so Hegseth maybe is saying, look, I can't say too much, but maybe they hacked into us. Or somebody leaked to him behind our backs. But we don't want to say anything because we want to catch the leaker. So, look, it's a mystery, and this is going to consume now the White House for at least the next couple days. Who was the saboteur? Who was the leaker? Was there a leaker? Or was this just pure incompetence? That's now the question. What say you? 617-266-6868. Your calls next. 7:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I got this message from Larry on Messenger, and I completely agree with him. Jeff, not for nothing, but it sounds like Pete Hegseth was blindsided as much as President Trump was. I agree. You can see it. I mean, you can just see it on his face. You can see it's like somebody rung his bell. It's like, what? Goldberg was what? On the group chat? How did that happen? You can just see it all over him. It's like, how does a screw up like this take place? Listen now to Goldberg. Oh man, was he milking this yesterday. So he put his story up on the Atlantic's website. And again, claiming that it was accidentally leaked to him. Those are his words. Saying, I don't know. I was on this group chat all of a sudden. And they're discussing all these war plans. And I'm just listening and watching and reading all these text messages. And I'm like, I can't believe this. Listen now to Goldberg. He started off on MSDNC with Jen Psaki. Roll cut 4, Mike.
I'm going to be responsible here and not disclose the things that I read and saw. I will describe them to you. The specific time of a future attack, specific targets, including human targets, meant to be killed in that attack, weapons systems, even weather reports, or, that the government is I don't know why Hegseth was sharing it with everybody.
So now he's like, again, now you can see they're going after Hegseth, right? They're really going out. Now you would think, well, wouldn't they go after Mike Waltz? Because privately, Trump is a little bit more upset, frankly, at Waltz than at Hegseth. He's upset at both privately. But Waltz more than Hegseth saying, well, you're the one that set up the group chat, forgive me. You're the one that said, let's put all this on Signal. It was sloppy. Like, in other words, he's not happy with Mike Waltz. Come on, you should have known better. You put it on a very secure government communications network, or you tell everybody, I don't care what you're all doing, go to the Situation Room. But if you can't, because people are overseas or traveling or whatever, then at least, don't put it on a commercial app, for God's sakes. Put it on something that's rock solid, secure, where you can discuss top secret classified information. But no, the media, including Goldberg, they're not going after Mike Waltz. They're going after Hegseth. Listen now to him saying, oh, it was the war plans. I mean, it was all there. Roll cut 4A, Mike.
The precise detail, and then a long section on sequencing. This is going to happen. Then that is going to happen. After that happens, this happens. Then that happens, and then we go and find out if it worked. I mean, he can say that it wasn't a war plan, but it was a minute by minute accounting of what was about to happen, organized by CENTCOM, Central Command, which is the military oversight group of the Middle East, the broader Middle East. This is their plan, and he was taking their plan and sharing it with a bunch of civilian leaders.
So, again, he's going after Hegseth, and he's basically saying he put operational security in jeopardy. He leaked classified information unknowingly, inadvertently, but that's what he did, according to Goldberg. And I want to play one more. Listen now to Goldberg, because this is one of the explosive claims he makes. He says, at 11:44 a.m. Saturday morning, this was on the 15th of March. So what is it, 10 days ago, whatever it is? He goes, I'm reading, they're going to hit the Houthis now in just a couple of hours. And I'm saying to myself, if I'm on this group chat, who the hell else is on this group chat? Roll cut 5, Mike.
It's interesting because as I'm reading it at 11:44 a.m. on Saturday morning, the 15th, seeing that the Houthis are not going to know about this for another couple of hours.
And you know about it.
Well, and I know about it, and I'm thinking to myself, honestly, I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm glad that Mike Waltz didn't invite a Houthi into the group or a Russian spy or an adversary of the United States.
You see, I don't believe him. I don't believe him. Does that make sense to you? Let's just play it out. You're a reporter, okay, an editor of a low subscription, but high profile, never Trump, anti-Trump, left-wing magazine that has been at the center of scandals and clashes with Trump going back 10 years. And literally you want to ruin him. Your goal is to politically annihilate him. And you're suddenly on this group chat where they're discussing this upcoming military campaign against the Houthis. And you're saying to yourself, well, hey, I'm happy the Russians aren't in on this. There's not a Russian spy. Or maybe the Houthis were invited. Or an adversary of the United States. Is that what you're thinking? What you're thinking is, my God, I've got the scoop of the century. That's what a normal reporter would say. My God, how am I getting in on this? How did I get access to this? Someone deliberately leaked this to Goldberg. The question is, why? 7:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, the lines are jammed. I want to go right back to the phone lines of all of you, great Kuhner Country callers out there. Let me just ask all of this, because I think this is a major, major question that needs to be answered. Why, if it's true, okay, if Mike Waltz did invite him, that's the question now. Why would National Security Advisor Mike Waltz invite a notorious Trump hater like Jeffrey Goldberg to be on this group chat? Unless he's I don't believe he is. I'm telling you, I don't believe it. Mike Waltz's background, he's a military man, he's a patriot, he's a conservative, he's a Trump supporter. So maybe it was his staff. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is, how could a notorious Trump hater be invited to this group chat? It had to be deliberate. There has to be someone inside who wanted Goldberg to have access to this. I think there's no question. And to me, then the follow-up question is this: what kind of and I'm putting this in air quotes because he's not a reporter. He's an anti-Trump Democrat activist. Okay, he's a scumbag. That's what he is. How would any self-respecting reporter, as someone, I think it was Susan or Suzanne on one of the messages, saying, Jeff, worth his weight in gold. Why would you go around advertising this and making yourself the center of the story? Just let me tell you this, journalism 101, at the Washington Times. And this was literally taught to me by the former managing editor of the Wall Street Journal, who then became our managing editor. He was a brilliant journalist, a brilliant editor. And he Giles was his name, Bill Giles. And he said, you never make yourself the center of the story. You're the reporter. You're not the story. Let me tell you, as a journalist, if I was in on that conversation, okay, just whatever. There's 18 of them, and I'm the 19th. I'm like, holy shamoly. I don't know how the hell I got invited onto this, but whoa, they're going to bomb Yemen. Whoa. Let me tell you what the obvious story is. It's not going after Pete Hegseth. It's not going after Mike Waltz. It's not any of that. It's not, our adversaries could be on this group chat. Oh, this is a leak. This is Espionage Act violation. Oh, my God. The Houthis could be in on this. No, let me tell you, if you want a front page major reporting scoop, JD, and I'm not saying this in a negative way. In fact, I think JD Vance comes across great in this chat. Thoughtful, almost like the adult in the room, frankly. I agree with JD. The point is, you have the Vice President of the United States in private, behind closed doors, opposing this bombing campaign in Yemen and saying, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's in our national interest. Only 3% of American shipping goes through that whole area. 40% of European shipping does. Why are we fighting for the Europeans again? And this may lead to a big spike in oil and gas prices. The president's trying to tame inflation and energy costs. And then he makes another excellent point where he says, it kind of goes against his message on Europe. His message on Europe is they're not pulling their weight. They're freeloading off of the United States. And yet here we're going to get involved in a military operation, which is, guess what? The Europeans are freeloading off of us, and they're not pulling their weight. And then you've got Steve Miller chiming in saying, JD, on this point, you're right. I hate the Europeans. By the way, they're bashing the Europeans throughout. Like, if there's one thing, they disagree on whether they should bomb Yemen or not. And by the way, JD Vance eventually says, hey, look, if all of you agree, I'm not going to obstruct. You've heard my objections, but the president wants this done. You guys want this done. I'll keep that's what he says, quote unquote, I'll keep my reservations to myself. In other words, look, I'm a team player. So guys, you want to do it, go ahead and do it. I'm just giving you my honest feedback and my honest, advice here. But Miller and Hegseth actually at one point say, no, look, JD, on this point, you're right. They even say it. I hate the Europeans, not the people, the governments. You're right. They're always freeloading off of us. They're always taking advantage of us. And then Miller at one point says, look, we're going to have to come back to them. They're going to have to pay us for this. He puts it, we're going to have to extract an economic cost. I'm giving you the precise language. So Miller's like, no, look, man, we got to make sure this is not for free again. So if we're going to help the Europeans out, and we are, they're going to have to pony up, and we're going to have to find a way that they remunerate us. And Hegseth says, I completely agree. So what I'm telling you, as a journalist, that's the story. That's the story. The story is they were divided, which, by the way, happens in every administration. But as a reporter, right, you want to lift the veil. As a reporter, you want to report what's going on behind the scenes. And everyone's like, oh, really? Yeah, they were divided on the Yemen campaign. No, JD thought it was a bad idea. Here was his reasons. Oh, my God, they hate the Europeans. Oh, my God, do they hate the European governments? That's the story as a reporter. That's frankly what I would report. I would, I'd be like, bang, this is front page. I'd call up my editor and I'd say, I got it, front page. What do you got? They're going to bomb Yemen. Well, we know that. No, they're going to bomb Yemen, I think, like today. But JD's against it. He thinks it's a bad idea. Really? Yeah. But he's going to, take a bullet for the team. He's going to support it. But behind the scenes, he's against it. Wow. And they hate the European governments. Really? Oh, they're bashing the Europeans. You wouldn't believe it. Okay. How much you need? 30 inches? You got it. Give it to me in 2 hours. Go. There. That's the newsroom for you. It's not, I was accidentally leaked classified information about U.S. war plans. Hegseth needs to resign. Mike Waltz needs to resign. What kind of an incompetent administration is this? They can't even keep secrets, classified info. And I'm at the center of the story. How I got this story. How the hell did I get this story? This is outrageous. Heads need to roll. People need to be impeached. People need to be fired. This guy's a scumbag and a joke. That's why with him, don't trust a word that he says. Goldberg, he's a liar. He's a liar. Carrie in West Bridgewater. Thanks for holding, Carrie, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Carrie.
Jeff, according to the Daily Mail, which I find to be a fairly credible source, and in fact, I usually go to the Daily Mail if there's something going on in the United States, because they usually have the story well before the American media does, they're blaming Mike Waltz. In fact, the headline is, Mike Waltz is a bleeping idiot. And officials White House officials are blaming him for leaking this text. It doesn't really indicate whether he was live on the chat, Goldberg was live on the chat, or if he got them after the fact. I don't know if that's true, if Waltz was the person who did this. It could be one of several things. He could have intended to add somebody else. You know, when you type in say I was typing in your name, I was going to email you, and I type in the J-E, my sister's name is Jen. You know, that could come up. Jeff could come up. I'm trying to give the guy the benefit of the doubt for doing this. But if not, you know, I don't necessarily trust any of these people. I really don't. I think we have to look at everybody, even the Trump supporters, with a fair degree of skepticism, because we've been burned before by people who claim that they were Team Trump, and then you find out, actually, no, they're Team Swamp.
You know, Carrie, there's other media outlets that are corroborating that, and some of them I trust. I know that Trump is angry with Waltz. I know that. And he said it was sloppy to have put it on Signal in the first place. He goes, well, what were you thinking? And he wants to know, how did Jeffrey Goldberg get on that? Listen, this is my fear, Carrie. Okay? If I was Trump's chief of staff, is Waltz secretly talking to Jeffrey Goldberg? I'm not saying he is. I'm saying that's the question I would be asking. And if so, why the hell is he talking to Goldberg? So, do we have another leaker, another mole who can't shut up? To me, that's why you need to investigate. Inside, 7:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, one of my most trusted investigative reporters. Okay, I trust almost everything that he writes. I always look to him when a story breaks, and that's Paul Sperry, former New York Post reporter, Investors Business Daily. He now writes for Real Clear Politics. His stuff, I'm not saying he's infallible. Obviously, like every reporter, he's made mistakes. You don't get it right all the time, but 99% of his stuff is absolute gold. Here is what Paul Sperry wrote in reaction to this scandal. What in the world was National Security Advisor Mike Waltz calling the execrable Jeffrey Goldberg in the first place? Goldberg's The Atlantic editor, who manufactured the October surprise hit piece alleging that Trump had called fallen veterans, quote-unquote losers. Waltz had Goldberg in his contacts, which means he had been a source of his. Paul Sperry then followed that up, saying FEC records show that Mike Waltz gave at least $5,000 to Mitt Romney. Now, let me tell you what many of you, the great listeners of Kuhner Country, are telling me, one after another. Jeff, I use Signal all the time. I'm on that app all the time. For you to dial someone in or have someone just show up in case it was even accidental means that they're on your phone's contact list, which means you call them, and you call them fairly regularly. I'd be looking at Mike Waltz. I'm not saying you fire the guy, but that's why you need an internal investigation. I'm telling you, this stinks to high heaven. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Tom in Medford. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome. Hello, Tom. All right, let's see if we can reconnect with Tom. Let's go to Tommy in Brockton. Thanks for holding, Tommy, and welcome. Tommy? All right, maybe we're having a problem with our phone system. Let's try one more. David in Brookline. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
3 times a charm.
Yes, it is. Jeff. Go ahead, David.
Jeff, I just want to look at this from a different perspective. I'm a hell no on your question as far as, Pete Hegseth. President Trump chose him for a reason. And I'm not justifying if there was and I'm saying if there was blatant sloppiness and it wasn't something else. What I'd like to just point out is the obvious hypocrisy of the people screaming the loudest, the demon rats, and as we call it, the state-controlled media. Just for example, they lauded the military for committing treason. I think it was Milley, when he said he'd call China in advance of an attack. That was great. Nothing happened to him. They congratulated the same people, Milley and others, for Afghanistan, for that disaster. And we could go on and on. The spy balloon, it flew over our country, over military sites. That was terrific. They did a great job when they shot it down over the ocean. One or two others. Lloyd Austin went AWOL, the Secretary of Defense. Nobody knew where he was. But that was good. He called after the fact. It's 2 other ones. The last one you'll like. The so-called insurrection on January 6th. Nothing happened to Nancy Pelosi. They said she did a great job. She didn't she didn't provide the National Guard troops as requested. These same people screaming. And of course, the most blatant and obvious one, we had a demented president for 4 years. But he's at the top of his game. I mean, nobody's held accountable for that. So the point is, again, if there was sloppiness, if there was a mistake, that's terrible. I agree with you. I think there's more to it. But let's call what I'm sick most of all these of the Democrats, aside from their policies, which is killing all of us or killed all of us, is the hypocrisy, Jeff. I can't stand it.
Well, David, look, I just, to reinforce, you're dead on. I'm telling you, you're absolutely dead on. And just to reinforce what you're saying, I want to read, this is what Chief Fullable, okay? This is what Hiawatha, Elizabeth Warren put out on X in relation to this so-called scandal. Quote, what Hegseth and Waltz in this group chat. This is blatantly illegal and dangerous beyond belief, according to the chief. Our national security is in the hands of complete amateurs. What other highly sensitive national security conversations are happening over group chat? Any other random people accidentally added to those 2? Now, As I said on X last night, and I want to get your take on this, David, and I want to repeat this right now, okay? No one died. No one died in this operation from the American side. I mean, there are a lot of dead Houthi terrorists, but I'm talking about from our side. No one died. In fact, it was an incredibly, and still is, a very, whatever you think about it, pro, con, for, or against. Okay, I'm just stating objectively the facts. Not one American U.S. service member has died. The bombing campaign, the drone attacks, the missile attacks have gone off without a hitch. So there's no problem. Nothing has been damaged. No one has been killed. Number one. Number two, unlike, for example, as you mentioned, Milley, who bungled the withdrawal from Afghanistan, got 13 service members killed, and then engaged in a systematic cover-up. Yet, I didn't see the media outraged. I didn't see the Democrats outraged. I didn't see Chief Fullable saying, this is a dangerous national security situation. But let me get to the ultimate. As I said on X yesterday, they're talking now about the Espionage Act, and oh my God, leaking classified information. And a reporter was invited to this group chat. This is unacceptable. Hegseth's got to go. Waltz has got to go. They all got to go. Really? Talk to me when Hillary Clinton is charged for violating the Espionage Act, for conducting official business, sending classified information over an unsecured private server. I'm not talking one group chat. I'm talking year after year after year of hundreds of thousands of pieces of email containing top secret, highly classified information over a private server. And then when she was caught illegally obstructing justice and destroying evidence, deleting 33,000 emails with a hammer, for God's sake, and bleach bit. No. So, was Chief up in arms then? Was Hakeem Jeffries saying that, I gotta go to jail, Espionage Act? Nothing. They circled the wagons around the Hildebeest. They defended Hillary Rotten Clinton. So I'll tell you what, whatever the left wants to say, or the media, about Hegseth or any other Trump national security official, talk to me when Hillary Clinton is charged for having an unsecure private server as Secretary of State and having deliberately smashed and deleted 33,000 emails, including all of her phones. When you do that, then we can talk about Pete Hegseth. What say you, David?
Again, the thing that is most aggravating is the hypocrisy. So to use your words, we're going to circle the wagons for a change. As you said yesterday, when has one Democrat, let alone get arrested, when have any of them ever been held accountable? You just named 10 things. I mean, you know, we're winning, but that doesn't mean potentially there could be a mistake. And again, if. So, again, bottom line, I think President Trump is going to stand by Pete Hegseth. I'm not so sure about Mike Waltz. Let's see how it plays out. But I'm sick and tired of these people screaming when we are obviously doing better now as a nation in the last 8 weeks.
Oh, there's no question. And look, David, let me throw up another scenario here, and I want the whole audience to weigh in as well, not just you, David. Here, this is now breaking, and I don't know how the Democrats get out of this one. Do you know which administration, listen to this, started the practice of having national security officials communicate war strategy, war plans, military operations over Signal, that commercial messaging app? Joe Biden. Now it's coming out. No. The reason why Mike Waltz is like this is Mike Waltz, and he says he's got the receipts to prove it. He goes, hey, whoa, wait, everybody's jumping all over me. No, hey, I was told by my team that the Biden administration encrypted this Signal messaging app and that now they used it for years. That they've now set it up at a level that it's as good as any government secured communications network. And so the Biden administration routinely had group chats with the Secretary of State, with the National Security Advisor, with the CIA director, in which they would be discussing potential military operations. And yes, classified information was discussed as well. So this actually began under Biden, and that in fact under Biden, Signal became the default messaging app for every top security official. It was the default program for everybody talking about national security affairs. So this occurred under Biden. And that's why Waltz is like, hey, everybody's pouncing over me. You don't use Signal. It's not secure. It's commercial. I was told by my people that Biden had been doing it for years. And apparently nobody complained. And that reporters would regularly be in on these conversations. Now, the fact that they would be privy to it but not release it. In other words, look, we're going to let you in on some inside information. When it happens, and then you can report on it. So just don't report on it beforehand. Now, I don't know if Mike Waltz is admitting that he got Goldberg on. He's just saying, look at that. Look, we've got the receipts. So Jake Sullivan would be on, Jake Sullivan would be talking. Anthony Blinken would be talking. The CIA director would be talking, and you'd have reporters in on these group chats. And this was all set up under the Biden regime. So the fact of the matter is they're going after Waltz and in particular Hegseth. Now we know something that Joe Biden was using Signal. His administration was using Signal, and they even had reporters in on these so-called group chats. I mean, hypocrisy is thy name. David, what say you?
I say, Jeff, if they ask Brandon, by the way, did you see them parade him out the other night? They want to make it look like he's somewhat competent in case this whole thing with the auto pen comes out. But anyway, if they asked him, were you using Signal? You want to know what his answer would be? Chocolate chip.
David, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. So this is from Grace, okay, my wonderful wife, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. She just texted me this a couple of minutes ago. Jeff, you are 1,000% correct. It's now coming out. Signal was being used in the Biden administration, it appears. So the story in many ways is, when was this app first introduced? And how long have reporters been on these key classified chats? Who in the Biden administration put this app on all the devices? How long were they using this? Now, there is another very real possibility, and this is obviously what Grace is referring to. We're thinking, and I understand why we're thinking this, because we got so burned in the first Trump administration. There were leakers, moles, saboteurs inside the whole time. This could be Biden, or Biden's people, to be more accurate, who are like, yeah, we're going to screw the Trump people. We're going to have everything put on Signal. And we're going to have all the government devices put on Signal. And we're going to make sure that reporters have a way to access these chats. So we're going to sabotage the Trump administration. Whenever they think they're holding a highly classified discussion or whatever, no, it can be hacked. Or a reporter can sneak in and listen in. And so this was a landmine planted by the Biden regime to sabotage the incoming Trump administration. That's a very real, again, we don't know. We're going to have to do more internal investigation. But that is a very real possibility. Agree, disagree. Antoine in Boston. Thanks for holding, Antoine, and welcome.
How you doing, Mr. Kuhner? It's been a pleasure. I haven't talked to you in a long time, but I'm back from Boston. And I just want to say this, right? I think this is a bunch of crap, because if he had military things to expose, I think that he would have exposed it. I want Pete Hegseth and him to release the whole text chain and expose this journalist that he's lying. I wish they would say, he already stated yesterday, there was no military chat or none of this about who we're going to bomb or who we're going to do this to. So why won't they just release it, right, and expose this journalist as a liar?
Antoine, if you have time, I know you're a busy man, everything has been released so far, if you can just read it. And the reason why I'm saying this is, you're right. I'm reading this. I was reading it last night. I'm reading it. I've read every single word that has been publicly released. I'm like, there's no war plans here. Like there's nothing. I mean, there's general, like a policy discussion, and it's fascinating. I mean, really, it is. In other words, it's fascinating how they came to this decision. And the arguments pro and con, and who's discussing what and who's saying what. And by the way, everybody's making excellent points. Honestly, what you end up seeing is very thoughtful, very smart. And in the end, they're very coordinated. In other words, they talk, they debate, they go back and forth, but then they're all on message at the end. They're all on the same team. So it's fascinating. I mean, it's really like inside, almost like you're reading a spy thriller, but it's real, right? So I'm reading this and I'm like, wow, this is really juicy. But where's the classified information? Okay, where's the war plans? Again, we're taking Goldberg's word. Now, if you notice, I played one of the cuts. He backtracks a little bit. He says, well, if they're not war plans, it's sequencing, it's attacks, it's targets, so it's not really a war plan. It's more of a general framework of the campaign in Yemen. So he's already backtracking a little bit. Antoine, you're saying he's lying, just call his bluff. In other words, he's exaggerating. What he claims he has and what he claims Hegseth did is not true. These weren't the war plans, and this wasn't top secret classified information. Correct?
Correct. Because if he was going to say, listen, he would go to the Senate and say, listen, look, these are the plans. Look, these are. He's showing me stuff that, hey, this is where the strike's at. This is what, but he's not going to do that. It's just another one of these MSDN, boring DC, anonymous sources that need to be rooted out of media. I love the way, when you come with a source, I know you're right on. But these people with these anonymous sources and saying, I have this information, and we don't hold their feet to the fire, this is why the liberal media and the rest of the established media is done for me and done for us. We're done. We're just done.
Antoine, thank you very much for that call. Really appreciate it. Look, remember, Goldberg is the guy, again, who, and this was a hit piece on Trump. It was true. Paul Sperry's right. It was an October surprise, where he claimed in France that Trump was, mocking and making fun and disparaging American veteran service members who fought in World War I, World War II, who died in France. And Goldberg said, oh, yeah, he called them suckers and losers. And the media ran wild with that story. And you remember Biden kept trying to make a big issue of it, even in the debate on CNN. The few times he was coherent. My son wasn't a sucker and loser. And Trump never said that. And we know Trump never said that because there were multiple witnesses in the group. And they said, no, we heard the whole conversation. It was the opposite. He kept praising him. He loved him. He kept saying these are great heroes who made immense sacrifices. Goldberg literally made the whole thing up. Now, he's got text messages. There's no question. But we're taking much of this at his word. And a liar like that, an anti-Trumper, a hater, I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. So the question I have, if I had Waltz in my office, is how is this guy on your contact list? Or was he on your contact list? I guess that's, A, how did he get on the group chat? And did that come from you? And if you were the one that invited him, why the hell is he on your contact list? Because you should have nothing to do with this snake. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Do you think there is a mole inside Trump's inner circle? Okay, Kuhner country, please, I want all of you to listen to this. Molto importante. Okay, really important information for all of you out there. The owner of the Atlantic Monthly, which Goldberg is the editor-in-chief, basically he's the hired gun of the ex-wife of Bill Gates. Her best friend, literally her best friend, her buddy for years and years, just pictures of them partying together on the beach together, vacationing together, was Ghislaine Maxwell. And if that name rings a bell, she's in jail now because she was effectively, I mean, I don't know how else to say this. She was the female pimp of a madam. Okay, sorry. She was the madam, I guess is the better way to say it, of Jeffrey Epstein. She was pimping out these young girls to Epstein. That was literally her job. She would groom, she would recruit these 12, 13, 14-year-old underage girls and send them to, Epstein's fantasy island on the Lolita Express. And this is who the owner of the Atlantic, and remember, she bought the Atlantic for the express purpose, she said it, to bring down Donald Trump. The sole purpose, as the French would say, the raison d'être, the very reason of being for the Atlantic and for Goldberg's salary and existence and position as editor-in-chief is to destroy, is to politically bury and assassinate Donald Trump. And her best friend was Ghislaine Maxwell. So that tells you the kind of morals, the kind of scum that owns the Atlantic, runs the Atlantic, and writes for the Atlantic. Now, two very, very quick things. I want to read this text message. It is an absolutely brilliant text message. It's from somebody I know, I trust, very smart. And this is what the person wrote. Jeff, I agree with you. I've read the Atlantic article and signal messages, the text messages, twice. Completely, top to bottom, all of it. Most of those on social media who are calling for Hegseth to resign are ringing alarm bells and repeating talking points, have not read the messages or the article. Should Goldberg have been added to the group chat? No. Did Goldberg gain access to quote-unquote secret information? Kind of. He found out we'd strike the Houthis 2 hours early. What Goldberg and the Atlantic are calling top secret war plans is a massive embellishment. Any butter bar fresh out of ROTC could tell you that. These aren't war plans. These aren't even school board notes. See, that's what I thought. I'm like, is it just me? I read the article. I'm going through the messages. I went through the messages again, and I'm like, what war plans? Anyway, the person continues. They're, quote, okay, we're ready to do that thing everyone knew we were going to do. Yep, neat. Also, Europe sucks, unquote. And by the way, that sums it up really good. Everybody knew we were going to bomb Yemen. Trump had said we're going to bomb Yemen. And they're like, okay, are we on board? How do we do this? What's our messaging? And you know, okay, we're going to do it. Yeah, okay. And they're just bashing the European governments. And really, I got to tell you, Europe sucks. They keep saying it over and over and over again. He ends with this. Watergate, this is not. It's a final, informal check-in after things are already planned and assigned. Bingo. I mean, just a brilliant description, an accurate description of what Goldberg had access to, what that text chain revealed and what they were discussing. Now, let me just throw one last log on the fire, because there is a theory out there, and many of you are holding to it. Not all, but many of you. And so I want to read to you, this is from 703. Jeff, to all the liberals out there, if they believe for 1 minute that Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, Mike Waltz, John Ratcliffe, Tulsi Gabbard, and J.D. Vance randomly and accidentally added this most rabidly anti-Trump journalist to a quote-unquote national security group chat, then I've got some swampland in Florida you may be interested in. These are some of the most competent people in the country, and you believe they would just screw up like this? It's simply not possible. This is called media strategy, and Trump is famous for stuff like this. Now, the theory is that whoever added Goldberg to this group chat knew that the one guy they could count on to leak it all, to get it everywhere. I mean, everywhere. Across cable TV, print media, social media, it would be Goldberg and his minions at the Atlantic. And the reason why it was deliberately leaked, meaning Trump wanted it out there, or his national security team on his behalf wanted it out there, and this is the theory, was they wanted the world, and the Europeans in particular, to know how much we don't like them. In particular, because the Europeans are just bashed incessantly, the governments again, how much they're freeloading off of us, how much they take advantage of us, how much we do for them, and how we're essentially going to war. We're bombing Yemen and the Houthi rebels fundamentally on their behalf. J.D. Vance makes that point. Hegseth makes that point. Stephen Miller makes that point. Okay, my friends, it's becoming pretty obvious now already within the first couple hours of this show, with further developments now on this, and I'm putting it in air quotes, this scandal, that it's coordinated. It's clearly now coordinated. We're going to find out why Goldberg was on that group chat. I think we're going to get the answers to that. But now Goldberg, listen to this. They're trying to turn this into Watergate 2.0. So the Democrats now have issued a statement. They don't just want Pete Hegseth to resign. Listen now to this. They want Trump's entire national security team, basically half his cabinet, to resign. Anyone on that group chat, now they say, must go. I swear to you, endangering American lives, endangering operational security, implicated in the leak of classified information and so-called war plans. So Hegseth has to go, Waltz has to go, Gabbard, Tulsi has to go, Rubio has to go, the CIA director Ratcliffe has to go. Everybody's got to go now. They want they basically want to blow up Trump's national security team. And Goldberg is now claiming, and you want to talk about a real POS. I'm sorry, he's a real piece of you-know-what. Okay, he's a scumbag. Now Goldberg is claiming, listen to this, that after he got, put onto this group chat and was notified of the so-called war plans, he contacted the White House. This is what he's now claiming. I called the White House to warn the president that classified information, your Yemen war plans have been compromised. They've been leaked to me. And if they were leaked to me, who else were they leaked to? And so now what he's saying Trump knew. So now he's claiming that when Trump yesterday at a press conference was asked about this story that came up in the Atlantic yesterday and was pushed hard on social media and by the Dems and by the media, this so-called firestorm. And when Trump said, what? This is the first I'm hearing about it. No, he's lying. It's Nixon. It's Watergate. Trump not only knew, Trump was warned, Trump did nothing. This is what Goldberg is now peddling. So this is clearly a coordinated attack on the administration. There's no question now in my mind. Let me replay that cut and then go right to the phone lines. By the way, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868. So this is Trump. The Atlantic drops their story. The Democrats pounce. The media pounce. They were waiting for it. Listen now to Trump. He's confronted by a reporter. What's your reaction of this Signal app and this group chat in which allegedly sensitive material, war plans, classified info was allegedly leaked to this so-called reporter, this Trump hater, Jeffrey Goldberg? Roll cut one, a mic.
Your reaction to the story in the Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of the Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
With the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis?
Right.
Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
So Goldberg is now claiming that that's a lie. That what you just heard now, that Trump's making this up. Because apparently he warned the White House. So Trump knew. This is what he's now claiming. The question to me now is very simple. Who made the decision to include Goldberg on that group chat? That to me is at the heart of this story now. Agree, disagree. Is this a conspiracy? Like a mole? A saboteur? Who's trying to blow up Hegseth and blow up Trump? Was this really an accident? Was this a hack? Was this something that they gave to Goldberg after the fact? To me, there's no question now that I believe it was deliberate and intentional. Agree, disagree. Harry in Maine. Thanks for holding, Harry, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Great
Hi,
call. I'm going to just give a quick shout out first, and I'm going to get into this Hegseth stuff and Goldberg, but I want to shout out Tom Homan, because yesterday's call was all about what wasn't happening in Boston. He arrested 370 illegal violent criminals yesterday, and you can talk about that another time in Boston. And so shout out goes to him.
He made good on his promise. Harry, I pointed that out on my X account last night. He got 300. They rounded up 370 illegal alien criminals, including, by the way, murderers, child rapists, fentanyl dealers, weapons traffickers, Trendo Aragua, MS-13 gangbangers. Harry, the only one he didn't arrest was Michelle Wu. As I said on X, he should have arrested her. That's the only thing. Otherwise, it was an incredible sweep. But you're dead on, Harry. He came to Boston and he delivered. But please, keep going, Harry.
She'll be next, God willing, Jeff. But, Jeff, this is a rhetorical question. Do we believe that we have completely rid ourselves of the deep state that existed in the FBI or the CIA? That's just a rhetorical question. We all know the answer. At this point in time, there's no way that we've completely rid ourselves of the despicable people that still exist in both of those parts of government. So I'm just going to put that to the side for a minute. But you ask, was there a decision made? Who made a decision to include Goldberg on that call? There was no decision made. No one in that cabinet would have made a decision that would have put him on that call. But I want to point back to what a couple of your callers said earlier. Janice, your second caller in the morning, nailed it. This is another Mike Flynn moment. Okay? And Kerry, I think, was the other caller that said, was he on the call or did he just get a copy of the thread? Now, according to what I read in a Newsmax article this morning, Goldberg claims to have, quote-unquote, received a connection request for that call on March 11th. But as you laid out very nicely just a moment ago, some of the context of the actual script, the thread, and you read through it from what your text message came a moment ago from one of your callers, your listeners, there's a lot of questions as to how much he knew and when he knew it. And I just feel that at this point in time, it's premature. It's a nothing burger also. David from Brookline, he stated all the other stuff that happened in the Biden administration and going back to Obama. And then you put the cherry on the cake, talking about Hillary Clinton and the emails and so forth that she deleted. You can also throw to a degree that's kind of analogous is what happened with Benghazi and how that came out to the public and all the lies that were covered up there. But at this point, they need to get to the bottom of it. I just think, as Janice said, it's way too early in the game. Let them do their...
I agree. They've got to do an internal investigation. 617-266-6868 is the number. Let me read to you all a text that I think really pretty much sums it up, I think, really well. This is from 617. You can text us, by the way, 70470, 70470. Jeff, no one shared any war plans. Goldberg fabricated that part, just like he's fabricated countless other Trump hoaxes. He took a dumb but ultimately trivial screw-up by National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and blew it up into Watergate 2.0. The only remaining question is why Waltz had Jeffrey Goldberg in his contact list. I agree. That if I'm Trump, that's a question, a central question I would need to get answered from Waltz. I completely agree. Why? Mike, what's going on? Why would you talk to this guy? Why would he be part of your contacts? Do you speak to him regularly? Why would you speak to someone like him? I think that issue needs to be resolved. Agree, disagree. Listen now to Goldberg. He's on MSNBC with Jen Psaki. Jen Psaki on the his allegations that war plans were inadvertently leaked to him. And notice, he's going after Hegseth, and he's going after Hegseth hard. Roll cut 6A, Mike.
The whole thing is just very flummoxing to me because I haven't seen this kind of unserious behavior before. And, and the Secretary of Defense, all due respect, in that presentation seems like a person who's unserious and is trying to deflect from the fact that he participated in a conversation on an unclassified commercial messaging app that he probably shouldn't have participated in.
You mean like Hillary Clinton on her private server for years? And God knows how many messages back and forth? No problem there, huh, Jeffrey? Or when she deleted all those emails, Jeffrey? No problem there, huh? I'm just, how about when they kept using the Signal app during the Biden regime? It's all coming out now. How, in fact, it was the Biden regime. This is unbelievable. Literally installed the app on government phones, government devices, and on government computers. So when the Biden regime is doing it, it's okay. But now, and don't get me wrong, I don't think Biden did it as an excuse. Like, you want to undo everything that Biden did. So I'm like, what do you mean he's got everything on Signal? Are you serious? That idiot put everything... Yeah, undo it. Undo it. Okay, but my point is, you weren't screaming holy hell when Biden was doing it. But now, under Hegseth, suddenly, he's got to go. He's not serious. He's unserious. He's incompetent. He's a frat boy. He's a drunk. He's an alcoholic. That's the other thing they're peddling on social media. He was so drunk, he had no idea who was in on this group chat. If you read the texts, the last thing you would say about Hegseth is that he's drunk. I mean, he's vigorously going back and forth. He's, I wouldn't say debating with Vance. It's a strong word, but, rebutting Vance and taking some of his points and pushing back on other points and drawing other people in. And he is sharp as a whip. So, no, they're going after Hegseth the way they went after Flynn. And they took down Flynn, and they think they can take down Hegseth. Agree, disagree? So, let me ask all of you. Should Hegseth resign? Or should Trump stand by Pete Hegseth and his national security team? Apparently today, Democrats now are going to go all out to get Hegseth to step down. The media is already demanding his resignation, as is Schumer, as is Jeffries, as is pretty much every establishment media outlet in the country. Should Hegseth be forced to go? I say no way in hell, but that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. And let me add this. Has this incident, let's call it that, shaken your confidence in Hegseth, in Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, and in Trump's national security team in general? Is this just a trivial screw-up, as many of you are saying? Or does this show a serious lapse in judgment and almost an amateurish quality, say, to Hegseth and some of the other people involved? 617-266-6868. Tommy in Brockton. Thanks for holding, Tommy, and welcome.
Yeah. Number one, I hope Trump's people are listening. Everybody that was involved with this communication, they need to take a lie detector test. Okay? So that's first and foremost. All right? Everybody's got to take everybody has to take a lie detector test, Jeff. And this was obviously a setup. And when I say everybody, that includes Marco Rubio, Tulsi Gabbard, all the above. They've got to take, he has to find out who the mole is. And I think possibly maybe Mike Walls may be the culprit because, like you say, why would he have contact information with regards to that guy that, whatever his name is for the Atlantic? He's done hit
Goldberg,
pieces.
Goldberg, Jeffrey Goldberg.
All right. And, you had a couple of callers ago, the good David from Brookline, bring up the fact about Biden, that they're parading him out now to show that he's sane. He's very observant. He's one of my favorite callers. But I have to say, when you first started in the old days, I used to love when David from Brookline would call in, who go, Jeff. and then Bill from Roxbury, whose dentures used to fall out when he was talking to you. But anyway, they're doing this deliberately, and now they're calling for Trump's whole administration to tank. This is no ifs, ands, or buts. These are people that are embedded in the deep state that want to sabotage Trump's second presidency. And Trump needs to just come out very forcefully and say, look, honestly, I think he should ask Pete Hegseth to resign. I like the guy. I love him. But this is where you have to fall on your sword because the damage is done. Whether Kuhner Country wants to admit it or not, the damage is done. And you're going to have every single news outlet crying, oh, my God, this is a national security issue. These are the Houthis over in Yemen. These people don't amount to a hill of beans. But, like I say, perception is everything, and Trump is very good about reading what's going on, but my God, Mr. President, make them all take a lie detector test. And if it turns out anybody of his cabinet picks refuses to take it, he needs to have his famous line of, "You're fired."
Tommy, do you think this was deliberate, or just to play devil's advocate, Waltz screwed up? Whatever. It was, it was a dumb move. It was a boneheaded move. Let's just say we accept the narrative that's out there that, he organized this group chat on Signal. Maybe he has Goldberg in his contacts. Well, you can say, look, I have everybody in my contacts. Reporters call me all the time. Just because I have a guy on my contact list doesn't mean he's a friend of mine or a mole, or I'm working with him, surreptitiously. I've got everybody in my contact list. That's what I do. I give interviews. So he can say, look, it's all innocent. I just mistakenly added the guy to the list. It was an innocent, stupid screw up. In other words, Tommy, could this possibly just be an accidental leak? Wasn't intentional. It's not something to bring down the Trump administration. It was just, a boneheaded move. People make mistakes. This was an honest mistake. What say you?
No, this was not a mistake. This was deliberate. Somebody inside the administration was looking to set Hegseth up. And it could be the people closest to him. No. There is no mistaking when you're using a social media app to talk to everybody. No, this was a setup. Definitely. Mr. Trump, find out who the rat is and fire them. And then Pete Hegseth, fall on your sword.
Tommy, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. Sandy was adamant to me. As I said, she's really hot about this story. She was adamant to me in the pre-show production meeting and frankly throughout the whole show. And her argument is, you're there to protect the president. On top of your other duties and responsibilities, whatever, you run the Pentagon, you're Hegseth, you do national security, you're Mike Waltz, whatever, State Department for Marco Rubio, whatever your cabinet position is, you also have to protect the president. That's part of your job. Okay. He's the one that was elected, not you. You were appointed by him, confirmed by the Senate, but ultimately he picked you. He was the one that was elected by the American people. So you have to protect the integrity of the presidency. And her argument is, why is Trump now having to protect Hegseth? Trump now has to protect Mike Waltz. He's got to go out there and go to bat for his guys because of the position and the predicament that he's been put in now. And instead, it should be his guys who are out protecting him. And she says, that's not the way it's supposed. She goes, I'm sorry, that's not the way it's supposed to be. They have put the president in a very, very bad position. Now, she's not saying Hegseth should go, but she's saying, look, man, the buck stops with him. And at a minimum, Trump should ream the hell out of him. Just for having agreed to do it on Signal, and just for having agreed to shoot his mouth off. Not that he gave away war plans, but still, I'm just giving you Sandy's argument. He's got a big mouth and, he's throwing his weight around and she goes, look, you don't do it on a commercial messaging app and you say as little as possible if you're going to do it on a commercial messaging app. And so she's saying, look, now the president's got to go out there and spend political capital, valuable capital, propping up Hegseth or propping up Mike Waltz. And her argument is it should be the exact opposite. They should be out there defending him, not him defending them. Do you agree? 617-266-6868. Stephen in Acton. Thanks for holding, Stephen, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I agree with everything you and the previous callers have said, including that. I do believe someone needs to be held accountable for this, and I'm kind of all over the place about this, to be honest. I think this Goldberg guy, I know he's lied before, but this is kind of a big thing to lie about, in the sense that this is a big risk that he's taking, a big public risk that he's taking to claim something like this. And I know there's going to be a hearing today, apparently. Tulsi Gabbard's going to be there. Ratcliffe's going to be there. Trump's going to sign some orders, I think, at 2. He's probably going to comment on this. They're going to be asking him about it. And I don't know. I just feel that, everybody is, all of the administration's enemies, the Democrats, the media, everyone has been waiting for something like this. They already have them in a corner. They're waiting for them to slip up. They're waiting for a mistake to be made like this. This is the golden opportunity that they've been waiting for. And so they're going to pounce all over this. And we know that they're going to latch onto this for the next 6 months. And my worry is that this is now going to become the next impeachment situation or Russia hoax situation. And the ambiguity of Hegseth's answer yesterday when asked about this does trouble me. I do think that this was an inside job. All evidence seems to be pointing to that we know of. But somebody needs to be held accountable for this. And unless the administration can dismantle this Goldberg guy's argument with laser precision and provide evidence without a doubt he was not in on these plans, I think they're going to jump all over this. And I'm concerned that I know Trump had nothing to do with this, but I'm concerned that they're going to try and use this now to take down his administration. I don't know what your opinion on that is.
Well, look, Stephen, I think you really put your finger on the pulse. I think you have. Look, Gabbard and Ratcliffe and others are going to be testifying in front of Congress today. It's everywhere now. The Democrats are going to hammer them. That's all they're going to talk about is this issue. They're not going to talk about anything else. The media is now running with this 24/7. You can tell now they're sensing blood in the water. They sense something. They're sensing something in the water. And they're going now. They want to get to Trump through Hegseth. And remember what I said about Mike Flynn. I know many people forgot, but I was against Trump throwing Flynn overboard. I was saying, I don't believe Mike Pence. And I said, even if you believe Mike Pence, don't throw Flynn overboard. Why? You cut off your right arm. Then you cut off your left arm. Then you cut off your right leg. Then you cut off your left leg. And by the time you're done, your presidency's finished. You're dead in the water. And that's what they're trying to do now. It's obvious. They want to cut his right arm, Hegseth. Mike Waltz, his left arm. Gabbard, his right leg. Rubio, his left leg. I mean, it's clear that's their strategy. So to torpedo his presidency. And I agree with you. Trump has to come out swinging today. I love the way you phrased it, laser precision. He's got to dismantle this narrative. And to dismantle it, you got to put Hegseth in the room with you, Waltz in the room with you. In other words, what the F happened? How did this guy get on the group chat? Or did he get on the group chat? Or was he fed this information afterwards? Like, he's got to get to the bottom of this. And my fear, Stephen, is this. My fear is that Goldberg, look, he's a worm. He's a worm. If he's involved, it's because there's something. I don't believe it was accidental. No way in hell. So if he's involved, there is someone trying to destroy and sabotage Trump from within. To me, that's why if you're Trump, you've got to get to the bottom of it, and you've got to really now, it's got to be like a Praetorian Guard. You don't give the Democrats anything. Because, in other words, you are rock solid, and you say, I'm not throwing anybody overboard. I mean, unless they were involved. If they're involved, that's something else. then that's a cancer and you got to excise the cancer. But if they're telling you, well, hey, look, this wasn't me. I didn't put him on that group chat, and you believe them, and the evidence shows that they're telling you the truth, you got to find the mole, and you don't sacrifice anybody. Because I saw what happened in Trump. This is a repeat of Trump's first term. And then remember it. Then Jeff Sessions, they bled him. After they got Mike Flynn, then they started to go after everybody. Then they realized we can pick this administration apart. And then that's when eventually they pushed out Jeff Sessions. And then it was just one after another after another. Then they pushed out the national security advisors. Then they pushed out the Secretary of State. Then, it was like musical chairs. So he cannot allow himself now to be boxed in by the media, the Democrats, and the deep state. And that's exactly what they're going to try to do. To me, this is war. And you don't surrender. You don't give an inch to the Democrats. And you've got to find out if you're being sabotaged or stabbed in the back. And you got to find out who the Judas is. Immediately. Now, let me just add one last thing, Stephen, to your excellent call. Goldberg maybe revealed something. We'll see. He gave the names of everybody that was on the group chat, except one. And he openly says this. He says it's a CIA official. Now, he's claiming because it's the CIA official, i.e. intelligence, he doesn't want to reveal that person's name. My antenna went up when I read that. I'm like, well, you're naming everybody that was on the group chat, but you're not naming a CIA official? Knowing the CIA, knowing the deep state, knowing how they leaked, knowing how they undermined and attacked Trump viciously during his first term, and we're out to get him, the last couple of years when he was in the political wilderness, I want to know who that official is, and was that person really on that group chat? And if they were, I'd look at him hard, because that's the person I would look at as a suspect. So, but you're right. Trump's got to come out fighting, because if they show any weakness now, this thing can go on for months. They can just blow this up and blow this up and blow this up. And then after a while, you're taking on so much political water. Even if you think the guy's innocent, you're going to cut him loose just to end the freaking scandal. So anyway, we shall see. Okay, very quickly. This is Eric, who messaged me on Messenger, and I think he's making a really, really good point. Jeff, Trump should back his cabinet and say attempts to weaken our cabinet will not succeed. Show strength, not weakness. Any resignations or firing is what the commie Democrats want. Bingo. And look, that's why, to me, more than Hegseth, and I know Hegseth's in the line of fire now, there's no question, but the big conversation is the one with Waltz. Because of Jeffrey Goldberg. And that's, to me, in other words, look, you want to know, where's the mole? We got to find the mole. Okay? Or what, there's a mole. Where's the mole? Where's it coming from? And you got to know if your national security advisor can be fully trusted. And so I think the question he's got to ask him is, was he on your contacts list? And how did he get on that on that group chat, on the Signal group chat? How did he get on that message thread? How did he get this? Was it you? Do you talk to him? He needs a clear answer to that. And I love what some of you are messaging me saying, Jeff, he's got to get some of Elon's whiz kids, and they are whizzes, these tech gurus, and go into emails and find out who's been emailing who. Someone has been talking to Goldberg and leaking to Goldberg. You've got to find the saboteur. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868 is the number. This is what my sister texted me from Tucson, Arizona, Jennifer. Jeff, Has anybody checked Goldberg's bank accounts or the Atlantic's bank accounts? Because something doesn't smell right. Well, they're definitely getting paid. That's another thing. They're definitely remember, you have the USAID scandal. You've got Doge uncovering this historic, rampant, almost unprecedented bribery, corruption, waste, abuse of taxpayer dollars. I mean, the Democrats are literally on the ropes. You've got Chuck Schumer now fighting for his very political life from an insurgency from AOC. And this, suddenly this, and we're not talking Russia, Ukraine, or Gaza. These are big wars. We're talking about the Houthis in Yemen. Whatever you think about it, it's almost a sideshow. And suddenly now, Trump's cabinet is a public firestorm, and Trump's cabinet is now being eviscerated. His top people now are embroiled in a massive media public scandal. No, he's being set up, and the question is, who is setting him up? Howard in Pennsylvania. Thanks for holding, Howard, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi.
Long time listener, first time caller.
Welcome, Howard.
Hey, just thanking the man above that you didn't get tapped to go into Trump's cabinet, because I wouldn't have anything to do every day from 6 to 10 in the morning. But yeah, I was just thinking. I mean, last night when I heard this, I thought, man, this is really bad. I have 40 years IT experience, not in government or military, but with financial data, so kind of know what the proper protocols are. And I was like, who in their right mind would use a public app, even though it's somewhat encrypted, to conduct this level of business? But then you mentioned something that I hadn't heard from any other place, and the fact that this app was actually approved during the Biden administration. It kind of leads me to believe, with some of the stuff you hear with Milley and some of the back channel communications he did, I'm wondering if the Biden administration didn't set this up specifically for that purpose. So I think this investigation, based on that data, if it's true, just took a 180-degree turn. And I think the investigation needs to be, who in the Biden administration set it up, and why was it set up? And, I mean, there's logs on everything. I think we need to get the Doge people looking at those logs, if they're still available, who is communicating with the Biden administration and who they were communicating with. And the fact that Waltz set this up, I'm wondering if that guy, that journalist guy, didn't get on there through like an autocomplete when he set that text message up. And I'm wondering now, someone had mentioned, I think it was you, that he said a CIA person was missing.
Yes.
I'm wondering if the letters of that CIA guy weren't close and he wanted to put him on, and the auto-complete put that journalist on by mistake. So if all that stuff is true, I think Trump needs to get out and say, well, it was an inadvertent mistake, but as part of that, we uncovered, and this could be a giant thing with the Biden administration. I think that's a legitimate angle that needs to be investigated.
Howard, let me ask you this, because you're smoking. By the way, first-time caller, amazing. Really, honestly, Howard, you should call more often. But let me just ask you this, just for the sake of argument, okay? Let's just play it out. Say it was a mistake on Mike Waltz's part. The person was Jeffrey Gold, Bunsen Jeffrey, GOL, and it accidentally goes to Goldberg. And that's how Goldberg got on the group chat, the Signal group chat. It was an accident. Let's just buy the whole thing. The fact that Goldberg was in his contact list, this is what's raising everybody's eyebrows in MAGA world. Because everybody knows who Goldberg is. He's an anti-Trump assassin. That's what he is, masquerading as a so-called journalist. So they'd be like, why is he in your contact list? Does that raise suspicions for you, Howard?
Well, I'm kind of biased, I guess, because I'm 1,000% MAGA guy. But I think there could be reasons. I mean, the administration needs to communicate with the press. So that guy could be in there for non-nefarious reasons. And, I mean, that's something that needs to be certainly investigated. But the other thing, and again, not being an attorney here, but anytime an email goes out, usually there's boilerplate on the bottom that, you know, if you got this by mistake, notify us, don't disclose it, immediately delete it, et cetera, et cetera. So I think Trump's DOJ.
Okay, my friends, you know how much I love this audience, and I always say the best callers in the business. So I went to management, and I said, I want to do something for the callers. Something, just to reward them. And they said, okay, Kuhner, man, we've got something for you. So, you know, I've been talking about Shenyang, what an incredible show it is. It's coming to Boston, Worcester, Portland, Providence. Well, now is your chance to win 2 free tickets. 2 free tickets to see Shenyang. Be the first caller right now. 781-350-7045. Let me repeat the number. 781-350-7045. The first caller, you get 2 free tickets to Shenyang. Treat yourself and your loved ones to an unforgettable night at Shenyang, a true celebration of beauty and heritage. It is coming to Boston, Worcester, Portland, and Providence starting March 29th. Get your tickets now at shenyun.com. That's SHENYUN.com. Pat in Beverly. Thanks for holding, Pat, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Pat.
Hey, I think that most people on the right just think of this as just a little bump in the road. I mean, we know the playbook from the left. Alinsky's rules for radicals: pick a target, hone in on it, just focus on that, then have the media keep with their little repetitive phrases. So I think that that's an expectation. They're going to go after these people. They also have not totally cleaned the swamp. We already know that. That also is an expectation. So what Trump needs to do is double down, and if the left is attacking people in his administration, just keep adding people to Doge and double down with Elon's people. Keep them at a trajectory that is like unbelievable, to the point where I am so incredibly happy with what has occurred in such a short time under this administration that, I don't care if he attacks people. We know they're going to do that. So I'm fine. They shouldn't really be using a lot of these platforms, but let's all be honest with us. If people want to get into these programs, it's possible. It can be done. So as far as I'm concerned, it's just a little bump in the road for Trump, and he shouldn't focus heavily on it. He's doing such a fantastic job that, people, he's adding new members to the right daily because people are so happy with what's going on in the world.
Well, he's on offense now. There's no question. His administration is rolling. I mentioned it earlier. I'm going to probably talk about it tomorrow. Here, just in the greater Boston area, Boston and in towns in Massachusetts, 370 illegal aliens, violent criminal illegal aliens, were apprehended by ICE over a 5-day raid. Just last week, going into the weekend, literally convicted murderers, child rapists, drug dealers, weapons traffickers, gangbangers, the worst of the worst. So, he's making literally Massachusetts much safer. After this raid, you, me, all of us, we're much safer. So he's rolling on all fronts. That's why I think they planted this story, and they got a mole inside Trump to put Goldberg on this group chat because they need a big scandal or fabricate or manufacture a big scandal to slow his administration down and to start taking apart his cabinet. And that's why I think Trump's got to be very strong today. He's going to be signing some executive orders. He's going to be doing a Q&A with the media. Trust me, Pat, all they're going to be asking him on is about this so-called scandal. And they're going to demand Hegseth's resignation, Waltz's resignation, and they're not going to stop. And so Trump's he's got to be on offense. No surrender. Same thing for Hegseth. No surrender. They've got to come out swinging. If not, the press corps is going to eat him alive. And I hear you, Pat. He's got tremendous successes. Keep going. Don't stop. But they're going to consume so much airtime. It's going to be this scandal all day, all night. And so Trump's got to nip this in the bud. And the way to do it, get that mole. You get that mole, and this story collapses. Final word to you, Pat.
Well, I think it'll be easy to expose the person. If you put enough pressure on the people that were on the call, someone's going to fold, something's going to happen. So that takes the emphasis off of Pete and Trump. And obviously, as you stated before, Elon Musk and his team would be able to find that person. So it's just a matter of time. But I just think that people out here in the real world are not concerned about.
Oh, I agree. No, Pat. No, I agree. No, Pat. This is a media manufactured story. There's no question. No question. No question. Especially since, look, the military campaign went well, is going well. No one died. And I'm not saying this lightly, but there were no negative consequences from this. Right? Nothing. It didn't hamper the campaign. It didn't undermine the campaign. It didn't get service members killed. So that's why Trump was like, well, but the campaign in Yemen has been exceptionally effective. Like, what leak? What are we talking about? So, in other words, the expression, no harm, no foul. There's been no harm. And that's why I think ultimately it's a nothing burger. Pat, thank you very much for that call. Andrea in Walpole, thanks for holding, Andrea, and welcome.
Thank you. I just want to tell you, I was worried that you would get in trouble, but the owner of the Atlantic is Steve Jobs' wife, not Bill Gates' ex-wife.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. It is Steve Jobs' wife. I'm sorry. And she's a rabid anti-Trumper, but it's not Bill Gates' wife. I stand corrected. My mistake. Thank you, Andrea.
I wanted to just say that what if this was in the program? It was programmed by the previous administration to have that Atlantic reporter on the call.
The group chat.
Yeah, because maybe they didn't clear out, since Biden's administration was using that system, maybe it wasn't cleared out, all those old contacts.
Andrea, do you know my wife by any chance?
No, but I love her in a non-sexual way.
Well, that's literally her theory. I was going to say, boy, great minds think alike. You and my wife are on the same wavelength. We're finding out now that Biden and his team installed this app, this Signal app, on all these government phones, government devices, government computers. And that the media, like Jeffrey Goldberg, were regularly allowed to join in on these group chats with, say, national security officials. And so Grace is saying, she says, I'm telling you, this is from the Biden regime. 617-266-6868 is the number. If I can just gauge the temperature, the feeling of the audience of Kuhner Country, just by going through the messages, the emails, the text messages that I get, I think it's like 9-1, 10-1. Jeff, no firings, no surrender, nobody resign. You don't give an inch to the Democrats. compared to what Hillary Clinton did, compared to Afghanistan, this is a tempest in a teapot. So if Trump's people are listening, they want you to stand up for your guys. Now, obviously, they want to find out who the mole is, and you do want to ask Waltz a basic question. How did Goldberg show up in that group chat? But, if they're clear, if they didn't do anything wrong, fight for your guys to the end. Peter in Florida. Thanks for holding, Peter, and welcome.
Good morning.
Hi, Peter.
The Signal app has a security feature called the safety number, and each person has a safety number. So I suspect that Waltz's safety number got hacked, and that's how everything happened. And so there isn't a mole. It was just a hacker.
And that hacker then would add Jeffrey Goldberg to the group chat, to the text message thread?
Something like that. I've never used the safety number, so I just leave it alone. But anybody can change a safety number at any time.
Interesting. I mean, I've used Signal, as I said, and I mean, I'm technologically almost illiterate. And, I use it with my family. I use it with my kids. And that's why when I first heard the story yesterday, I'm like, they were discussing Yemen, the national security team on Signal? Like, are you serious? So now I'm not a sophisticated user of Signal, but Peter, look, I got to tell you, I think something smells, and I'm sensing a setup. A mole or a setup, and I think you may be onto something. Peter, thank you very much for that call. I don't know if they're setting up Mike Waltz or if they're setting up Pete Hegseth, but something, as they say, something is rotten in Denmark. That old Shakespeare saying, something is rotten in Washington. Tom in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Great show.
Tom. Thank you.
Great show. 2 comments and a recommendation. Jeff, he has, again, surrounded himself with political hacks. People he can't trust. He did in his first term. He did in the second term. I can give you a few examples. But what he should do is assign a special prosecutor to investigate what happened. And someone from the outside he can trust. Bring someone in, go maybe with the help of the FBI, with Patel, with Musk, go through all the telephone records, go after Goldberg, see if he committed any federal crimes by not getting off the line fast and not reporting it. And the other special investigation he should do is on the Afghanistan, those 13 kids that got killed. Who was at fault on that? No one investigated that. Have those 2 investigations simultaneously going. It shows him responsible as a president to find out what happened. You got to realize when Washington was president, one of his top aides, his top generals, took a bribe or accused of taking a bribe, and he fired him. He was gone. So he has to do what a president would do under the circumstances. He, like I said, get somebody from the outside. That one, now it's going to take months and months to go through, and he's showing responsibility as a president doing the right thing. Because I got to tell you, Jeff, he's got people around him. I mean, Rubio. I mean, Musk put him on the spot. He didn't fire one person. And all these other people. So you don't know if someone was trying to get rid of Hegseth, someone from the CIA, or someone from somewhere else. You know what games are being played behind the scenes.
I know. No, Tom, Tom, you're dead on. And look, I want to ask you something. Again, I talked about this earlier. Paul Sperry, to me, one of the best investigative reporters in the country. He's training his eye on Waltz. And he says the one thing he doesn't like, he says, I just uncovered Waltz gave $5,000 to Mitt Romney. And what Paul, now he doesn't say this. The conclusion you draw, he doesn't say it. But the conclusion that's obvious is, well, if you gave that much money to Romney, who, devoted his career when Trump came on the scene to destroying Trump. How loyal are you to MAGA and to Trump? What say you? I've got less than 30 seconds. Go, Tom.
Yeah, exactly. See, you hit the nail on the head. This guy, so someone got the Trump to put Waltz in the position he got in. Someone from maybe not Romney, but someone else said, "Oh, this guy's great," and then they suckered Trump in to put Waltz in. See, he surrounded himself, but special prosecutor, he has to do something, Jeff.
Tom, this story is not going to die, and we'll see what's going to happen. I think the next 24, 48 hours are going to be critical. And if the pressure grows too much, you may have no choice but to appoint a special counsel. But look, today's going to be big for him. He's got to weather this storm, come out swinging, both him and Hegseth. Okay, I got to go. Bye-bye.